Okay, good morning. This morning is super cold. Thank you for coming. So today we are going to discuss Chapter 3, Financial Markets. All right. So Chapter 2, we have the discussion on financial system. So financial system consists of financial market and the financial institution. Chapter 3, we are going to have a detailed discussion on financial markets. So here I like to highlight markets. So we have different financial markets. So for me, comparison is important. All right. So we will introduce each financial market. I hope students you understand the differences between them, right? So the idea is simple. Why we have different financial markets? Because we have different investors, right? Investors have different preference. For example, liquidity preference, short term versus long term, right? And the risk preference. Some investors like short term, low risk. Others might like high risk. And I know risk and return will go together because of market efficiency, right? So we are going to show you different financial markets. Again, comparison is important, right? So in today, Chapter 3 will include several topics. In today's lecture, I hope to cover the first 3 topics. Our first market is money market. So when I see the money market, so you can see the definition. The money market, where financial institution and other business adjust their liquidity position by borrowing or investing for short periods. So again, I highlight a few keywords for you. Money market. When I see a money market, I know short period. That means short term. That means shorter than 1 year. Right? So business or financial institution will adjust their liquidity position using the money market. Next point, Reserve Bank of New Zealand will conduct the monetary policy in the money market. Right? So we have the discussion on Reserve Bank in Chapter 4. Right? And our focus will be monetary policy. All right. So that means Reserve Bank will buy or sell the short-term government bond to affect money supply in the economy. All right. This is very important. We have discussion on Chapter 4 in Chapter 4. Okay. Again, let me highlight a few key points using my handwritten note. Right. So money market, when I see the money market, I know it's shorter than 1 year. Liquidity means the money will be received or be paid within 1 year. All right. So liquidity, I'm thinking, will be converted into cash very soon. Right. So the liquidity. About the liquidity position, so let me show you the balance sheet again. This is a company balance sheet. So the company or the business will use the money market to adjust their current asset and the current liability. For the long-term asset or fixed asset, they use the long-term debt and the equity to finance their long-term assets. Again, I use my family as example. So for me, family is a business, right? So you can see that for me, the short term, like a short-term asset and the short-term liability. Like my credit card is a short-term debt. Short-term asset, the inventory. For example, I go for shopping every week. So you can see I use the short-term debt to match my short-term asset. My house is a long-term asset. I use the long-term debt, for example, house loan and the equity to finance my long-term asset. I don't use the credit card to finance my house. All right. So this is a money market. Again, when I see the money market, short term, right? Short term, and the business use the money market to adjust their liquidity position. That means short-term asset and the short-term liability. Next slide. The instrument in trading in the money market, right? Typically have short-term maturity. For example, short-term government bond and low default risk and active secondary market. So again, when I see the money market, I know it's short-term. Because it's short-term, the default risk is low. Because the short-term, that means it will be converted into cash very soon, within 1 year. So low default risk. Secondary market. So first here, I like to review what we learned in chapter 2. Right. So remember in chapter 2, we addressed the primary market and the secondary market. So when I see the primary market, it's a transaction between investor and the company or government. So government or company, they are issuer. They issue new short-term bond to investor, right? Investor provide money to the issuer. This is a primary market, all right? After primary market, short-term bond will go to secondary market. So secondary market is a transaction between investor, buyer and the seller, right? This is a secondary market. So money market, for example, short-term government bond is active in the secondary market, all right? Next one, money market instruments have characteristics very similar to those of money. The idea, again, is short-term, right? So they can be converted into cash or money short-term or within 1 year. So it's very similar to the money, all right? So low default risk. Okay, we finished the discussion on money market. Again, let me highlight some key concepts for you. So when I see the money market, I know it's a market for short-term security, shorter than 1 year. For example, short-term government bond. And money market, low default risk and high liquidity. And the Reserve Bank will use the money market to conduct their monetary policy. That means they will buy or sell short-term government bond to affect the money supply. And the money supply will influence the economy. We have more discussion in chapter 4. Right? And the money market is active in the secondary market. So they have active secondary market. When I see the secondary market, I know it's a transaction between or among investors. All right. Next topic, capital market. Again, when I discuss a new market, for example, capital market, let's make a comparison with money market. All right, so comparison is the key. So capital market, capital market bring together borrower and the supplier, money borrower and the money supplier of long-term fund. So this is a key, this is the first difference. So capital market, long-term, money market, short-term. Right. So capital goods, that is the fixed asset or long-term asset, are financed with stock or long-term debt instrument. Right. So in the capital market, you can see the capital market include stock market and long-term debt instrument or long-term bond. Right. So long-term bond is clear, long-term capital market. Stock is long-term. The idea is stock has no maturity date. It's forever. So long-term debt or long-term bond, the life of long-term bond is longer than 1 year. So stock has no maturity date, or you can say the life of the stock is forever. It's long-term. So capital goods are the real asset used in production. For example, equipment or the plant, right? Like a building. I know our unit will have a new medical school, right? So you can see we are going to finance our new project, the building, the long-term asset. It's a long-term project, right? So the unit will finance this new project using a long-term debt, all right? And or the stock, like our own money. Okay. And capital market are less marketable. That means less liquidity, a higher default risk. The idea is simple. Again, the idea is long-term, right? Long-term. So long-term, investor will receive their money late. That means less liquidity and high default risk. Okay, next slide. So function of capital market. So the motivation of the firm for issuing or buying security in capital market is very different from those for acting in the money market. So here we like to address the difference between capital market and the money market again. So firms like to finance capital good or long-term asset with the long-term debt or equity, right, to lock in their borrowing costs. On the other hand, firm or government adjust their liquidity position, that is current asset and current liability, by borrowing or investing in the money market. Right. So again, let me use my family example. Right. So that example we told you before. So for me, house, car, and education, my children's education, they are long-term, right? Long-term project or long-term asset. I use a long-term debt or equity to finance my long-term asset. Short-term asset, for example, I go for shopping, the meal, the gas, the rent, they are short-term, right? So I use a short-term debt to cover my short-term asset. So again, the balance sheet, right? So CL, CA, short-term correspond to short-term, all right? Long-term debt, equity, long-term to long-term, right? So when company or business, they make a finance decision, they use short-term to short-term, long-term to long-term. Again, the example is very simple. We don't use the credit card to finance our house. For example, you don't use the credit card to pay your tuition fee, right? Next slide, we show you the purchaser or buyer of the capital market. So individual, household, foreign investor, and financial institutions. For me, it's not difficult to understand, right? So we have investor in capital market. Next slide. So we know the difference between money market versus capital market. So capital market, long term. So you can see when I see the capital market, the term to maturity, 1 year or more, long term. And we have major capital market instrument. The first capital market instrument is bond. Right? So here we like to have more detailed discussion on bond. Bond is an obligation of the borrower, right, to make a periodic cash payment to the lender over a given number of years. Right. So when I see the bond, I know it's an obligation of the borrower So borrower need to make a cash payment to lender or to investor or bondholder, right? And we have two types of bond, government bond and corporate bond. So government bond, that means bond is issued by government. Corporate bond, the bond is issued by a company, right? So again, comparison is the key. When I see the bond, I will make a comparison with stock or share, right? So capital market, we have bond market and the stock market. So for bond is obligation. Let's make a comparison with stock. Stock is not an obligation. Stock represents ownership, right? And the bond, periodic payment, right? Stock, not periodic payment. So bondholder will receive coupon. We have one chapter on bond later. Bondholder will receive coupon. Coupon is a periodic payment. That means they will not change. Stockholder will receive dividend. Dividend is not a constant. Dividend will change. Right? Next, bond. We have government bond. We have corporate bond. But for stock, we only have corporate stock. Government cannot issue stock. The reason, stock is ownership. They cannot steal our country. Owner of the country is citizen, right? So government cannot issue stock. They can issue bond only. Right? So again, when I see the bond, please make a comparison with stock. Right? We have more comparison later. Next one, stock or common stock or ordinary share. So you can see I address a few points for you. When I see the stock or share, they are ownership, right? That means stockholder or share investor, they can vote. They can vote for the director, and the director can decide CEO. They are the manager, right? So shareholder, they are owner of the company. They have voting right. But holders are entitled only to the residual claim against the first cash flow or asset. So I highlight this word, residual claim. Claim is a request, right? So residual claim means when the company go bankrupt, company need to pay bond investor first. Finally, share investor. The reason, bond is obligation of the company. So they need to pay bond investor first. So normally when the company go bankrupt, equity investor or stock investor will receive nothing. Right? Finally, limited liability apply. So limited debt. So we have the discussion on this point in chapter 1. So again, the comparison is very important. When I see bond and stock, I know the difference. For share or stock is ownership. So bond is not ownership. Bond is obligation of the company or the debt. Bond has no voting right. Stockholder, they have voting right. All right? Residual claim. That means when the company go bankrupt, they need to pay bond investor first, then share investor. Next, preference share. So now we have bond, share. The third is preference share or preferred stock. So again, comparison. So preference share or preferred stock does not carry voting right. And the preference shareholder receive preferential treatment with respect to the compared with the common stock. So preferential, that means the company, when the company go bankrupt, they need to pay preference share holder first, then common share holder or common stockholder. So dividend payment at the claim. So claim is a request against the firm asset in the event of bankruptcy or liquidation. So again, I use my note to make a comparison and address the key concept for you. So now we like to consider the three security or three instruments together. So we have bond, we have ordinary share. Between them, we have the preference share. Right? So comparison is a key. For bond investor receive coupon. Share investor receive dividend. Right? Coupon are fixed. Dividend are non-fixed. That means they will change over time. Right? Bond is debt, is obligation of the company. Ordinary share is non-debt, is a ownership. Bond, high priority. Ordinary share, low priority. The priority means when the company goes bankrupt, they have to pay bond investor first. That means bond is obligation, is a debt, right? And share investor, ordinary share investor, their priority is low. Right? So normally when the company go bankrupt, share investor will receive nothing, right? And finally, the time to maturity. Bond time to maturity is smaller than infinity. That means bond has a maturity date. Share, ordinary share, time to maturity is infinity. That means no maturity date. Right? Bond has no voting right. Share voting right. So after we know bond and ordinary share, preference share, you can see preference share will have some character like ordinary share and some character like bond. So here we make a comparison. Preference share will receive dividend. But their dividend are fixed. I mean, no, will not change, right? And it's non-debt. So preference share is non-debt. That means the company can decide not to pay preference share investor. It's not obligation. Next, priority between bond and ordinary share. In particular, when the company go bankrupt, they need to pay bond investor first, then preference share investor, finally, ordinary share investor. Time to maturity, like bond, preference share has a maturity date. Voting right, like a bond, preference share has no voting right. So again, comparison is important. So far we introduced bond, preference share, ordinary share. Please understand the differences between them. Okay, next slide. We are going to discuss a bond further. So for bond, I know we have government bond and corporate bond. Now, the government bond, we have the central government bond and the local government bond. So for me, it's easy to understand. Central government bond is a bond issued by central government, right? Like the New Zealand central government. Local government bond, the bond is issued by local government, for example, Hamilton City. All right. So the difference between them is central government can print the money, right? So central government bond, the risk will be low, right? state government bond or local government bond, the risk will be high. So finally, corporation, right, or corporate bond, right? So company can issue both bond and the stock. Okay, we finished the discussion on capital market. So let me review some key concepts for you. So first, when I see the capital market, I know it's a market for long-term security. Long-term means longer than 1 year. For example, share or long-term bond. We have long-term government bond and corporate bond. Right? And when I see the long-term, I know they will have higher default risk and less liquidity. And the function of capital market versus money market. So the company or the business will use capital market to finance their fixed asset or long-term asset. On the other hand, they use the money market to adjust their liquidity position. That means current asset and the current liability. And finally, we address the differences between ordinary share, preference share, and the bond. Right. So we have several differences among them. Okay, we are going to discuss the final topic for today's lecture, the bond market. So now we are going to have a discussion on bond market further. We have treasury. Treasury for me is government, right? Government. So government bond. Semi means semi-government bond. So semi-government is local government bond. And finally, we have corporate bond. The size of bond market. So I hope students know the size of bond market is very big. So long-term debt or long-term bond market are massive in scope. The market is very big. All right. One of the reasons is government. Government borrow a lot of money. So the bond market is so big. All right. So one of the reasons is government. The government bond market is the largest market. So during the past decade, the bond issued by non-resident or foreign company has grown largely. All right. So not only local or home country, we also have the foreign bond. Right. Okay, next slide we discuss the Commonwealth government security. That means central government. So central government bond or treasury. Treasury means government, all right, or T-note. So issued by the central government. Right? When I see the government bond or by the central government, the default risk is free. I mean, free of default risk. I mean, no default risk. Like I mentioned earlier, central government can print the money, right? But I know printing too much money is no good, right? So you can see the problem, inflation. We have more discussion on this issue in chapter 4. And tax exempt, that means tax free, right? So bond investor, they receive a coupon from government, it's tax free. Right? Next, state government bond. So state government bond is a bond issued by local government, right? Local government. So it's not difficult for me. When I see a local government bond, I know the default risk. Right? So local government bond will have default risk, similar to corporate bond. But the interest, that means the coupon from the bond, because it's a government bond, So interest is tax exempt, it's tax free. Okay, next, corporate bond. So corporate bond is a bond issued by a corporation or a company, right? So a debt contract requires borrower to make a periodic payment of interest and repay the principal at maturity date. So we have one chapter to discuss the bond. So you can see bond investor, they will receive the payment of interest, that means coupon, every period, and one principal payment at the maturity date. All right, so we have multiple payments, in particular coupon payment or interest payment every period, and lump sum payment for the principal at the maturity date. Right? And when I see the corporate bond, I know corporate bond will involve default risk, and the corporate bond will have test, right? Because it's not issued by government, right? Therefore, we have tests. So again, let me use the image to summarize the three types of bond together. Again, make a comparison. So bond could be issued by government or a company. So we have government bond, corporate bond. For government, we have central government and local government. Right? Again, the difference, the risk from low to high, right? Test 0 to non-zero. So corporate bond will have test. Government bond test-free. Return. When I see the return, I know return and the risk will go together. Low risk, low return. High risk, high return. Right? Okay, next slide. So investor in corporate bond. So investor in corporate bond market include insurance company, superannuation fund, household, and the foreign investor. So for me, it's not difficult to understand. Next point, corporate bonds are an attractive option because of stability of their cash flow and the long-term nature of their liability. So I highlight the two key points, stability of cash flow and the liability. So let's make a comparison with stock or share. For bondholder, right, their cash flow are stable. That means the coupon payment and the principal payment will not change, right? Stable. Compare with stock investor, they receive dividend. Dividend is not a constant. Dividend will change over time. And liability, bond is liability. So the company need to pay bond investor first, all right? On the other hand, share is not liability, right? So when the company go bankrupt, shareholder or share investor normally will get nothing, all right? So next slide, the primary market for corporate bond. So when I see the primary market, again, I have this image, primary market, that means the transaction between company and the investor, right? So company issue corporate bond to investor, investor provide money to the company, right? The primary market, or you can say the first-hand market, right? So primary is a transaction between bond issuer and the investor. And we have two sales, public sale. The bond issue is offered publicly in the open market to all interest buyer, to all buyer. It's public sale. Or private placement. The bonds are sold privately to a few investors. Right? So for the primary market or first-hand market, we have public sale to all investors in the market, or private placement, right? So to be sold to a few investors. Now we discuss the secondary market for corporate bond. When I see the secondary, that means it's a transaction among investors. The image like this, right? The secondary market, investor, we have buyer and the seller. It's a transaction between or among investors, right? And most secondary trading of corporate bond occurs through dealer. So we need dealer to help with the transaction in the secondary market. The market is thin, so we'd like to address this point. That means not active compared with the market for money market or corporate stock. So the transaction is thin. That means the transaction is not active. So here we give you the reason. So corporate bonds are less marketable or not active for several reasons. One, it's difficult to value. Right? So here we just introduced the corporate bond to you. Right? However, corporate bond will have some special feature like a provisions. Provision is a special contract of the bond. So like a call provision or sinking fund. So let me discuss the call a few minutes. Right? The call is a right to buy. So when a company issue the bond, they have a call provision. That means the company can buy back the bond early. You might ask me why. For example, the bond is for 10 years. It's a 10-year bond. The company need to make the periodic payment over 10 years. But the company might buy back the bond early because of the call. For example, buy back the bond in 2 years. The reason? They want to use new bond to replace old bond. For example, if the market rate right now is low, they can issue new bond, use a lower interest rate. So they will buy back old bond and to be replaced by the new bond. All right. So for corporate bond, they have many special features, right? The bond provision. So callable is one of them. So it's very difficult to value. Right? Therefore, their secondary market is not active, right? Because investors don't know the value, the true value of the bond. It's difficult to value. And the corporate bond, they are long term, right? Therefore, higher risk. All right. So this is why corporate bond, the secondary market of the corporate bond is not active. Right? So let me use my handwritten note to summarize the bond we discussed so far, right? And again, comparison. So bond, we have corporate bond, we have government bond and corporate bond. Government bond, we have long term, we have short term. Right, short term and long term. So government bond is active in the secondary market. So after first primary market, the bond will go to secondary market. So investor, they can buy and they sell the government bond in the secondary market. On the other hand, corporate bond is not active in the secondary market, right? Because the corporate bond will have the bond provision, right? It's difficult to value, right? Because it's a 101, we don't have time to show you the issue further, but it's very important, all right? So in our Finance 302, we will discuss different types of bond, right? For example, callable bond, pullable bond, convertible bond, Right? They are difficult to value. But here in 101, we will show you the bond variation, but our focus is a straight bond or you can say a simple bond, right? Simple bond. But you know, in finance, we have different corporate bonds, right? And they are difficult to value, right? Okay, we have done the third topic, bond market. So again, let's review some key concept for you. So bond market, for me, I know bond market, the market size of bond market is huge, bigger than share market. Although people talk about stock market or share market, but I hope you know bond market is much bigger, right? The reason, I give you two reasons. One, government. So government bond is a big market. Another reason is we have different type of bond. Okay, so in chapter 3, we discussed government bond versus corporate bond. In the government bond, we have central government bond, local government bond. We have long-term government bond versus short-term government bond. So you can see we have different type of bond. And that is why bond market is bigger than stock market. Right? For corporate bond, we have the corporate bond will have special provisions. For example, callable, purable, and then convertible. Right? So it's not easy to value the corporate bond. So the secondary market is not active because difficult to value. So I like to let you know in chapter 8, we have a chapter for bond variation, but our focus is a straight bond, right? In the market, you know, we have different corporate bond. If you want to learn more, we have FINAN101 to discuss this issue. Okay, we finished the lecture today. One more thing before we go, attendance recording. So give me a minute, I will show you the QR code. Okay, student, please use the QR code to record your attendance. Online student, I hope you can see the QR code from your end. After you complete the attendance recording, you are free to leave and enjoy the sunny day.